We're going to take a look at doing a starting up a new map, a new terrain in the Fusion Workbench. I want to kind of go over a guide that is a written guide to how to do this if you'd rather read. But I would also say that you would want to go through this document as well. There is a lot more in this document than what this video is going to cover. There's a lot more information about what I am covering that this explains as well. This will be linked in the description of the video. As you can see, there is a lot in this. We are going to be doing the new project terrain and basic lighting setup, and we're going to pretty much be going through all of this up into the Satmap. We're not going to be doing surface masks, and we're not going to be painting important roads. So definitely look through this. A lot of great information. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel and do something that is already out there. This topic came up about having a more recent video made. I've been not doing this type of video because there's already some out there, but some of those videos are a few months up to 3 years old and just have some of the outdated stuff. They're still great tutorials. They have a lot of great information in them. It's just not done with the more current entities in mind. So to go ahead and get started, you're going to launch your Workbench, and we are going to hit add new project. Actually, you know what? I'll show you here. This is your Reforger tools, and to find that, you want to make sure that you have the tools check marked here, and then you'll have to download it. So that's where I'm at. All right, so we're going to hit add new project. We're going to create new project, and we're going to name it tutorial YouTube updated. The location you'll want to choose, you'll want to make sure you're doing your projects outside of the OneDrive. Do not work inside the OneDrive. Try to avoid that to the best of your ability. So I'm not going to get into too much detail, but essentially, if you work inside the OneDrive, you're going to have issues uploading in the future. Some people's projects have been locked. Just causes a variety of different issues. So I would, in reality, try to completely save it on a different storage disk if you can, but at a minimum on your main drive outside of the OneDrive folder. Okay, so you would essentially make like a a C:/ARMA folder, and you want to work out of that. Ideally, from what I understand, you would even want Steam outside of that, but that's a whole different topic. So I'm going to change where this is going, and I'm going to be going into a folder I've already have made. So now that we have our location chosen, we have it named. We're not going to use any dependencies. So if you were to want to make with other mods, which is a whole other topic, you would be able to choose those. We are not going to do that. And we're going to hit create. And we are going to open the world editor. And yours may look a little bit different. I have customized my layout a little bit. I'll go over that a little later in a different video probably. So from here, we're going to go and hit save. And you're going to see this come up. In general, you want to follow the same layouts for items that ARMA Reforger has. So their worlds are saved in ARMA Reforger worlds. All right. So we're going to close that. We're going to go to your projects folder, and we're going to hit new folder. We're going to call it worlds. Open that, go into worlds. So with that selected, your file name. This is going to be your world's name. So for our purpose, this is called tutorial YouTube updated underscore terrain. You can call this whatever you want. I personally use the underscore terrain at the end simply because when I do a game master or a conflict or a scenario, I'm differentiating those a little bit from that. Again, it's not needed. Do not use spaces. You have to use underscores if you want it to be separated in the word. Again, you can name this whatever you want. I just like to follow what my project folder is called, underscore terrain. So we're going to hit OK. You should see now that your world is called that. So it's saved. We're going to exit out of this. And we're going to go over here, go to save. We're going to reopen. We're going to open. And you should see yours here. Hit OK. So on the left side here, you have your hierarchy. This is all the items that you're going to end up inside your world. Right now, you only have your world and your default layer. It is very important that you leave that alone. You do not want to rename that. You do not want to move that outside of the world itself and put it in a different folder. Leave this be. To the best of my knowledge, if you mess with this, it could cause you issues later on. Even just renaming it. From what I understand, ARMA will load this layer by default. And you know it's a layer because of that symbol. Kind of looks like a sandwich or like a hamburger. So leave it alone. The only thing you want inside this default layer is going to be your world. And I like to leave my terrain in there. So before we get going too much more into add-in things, I'm going to show you some basic camera movements inside this viewport, which is what this is, what you see here. This is your viewport. So to move around in the world, you have to hold the right mouse button, and your WASD will move you left, right, up, down like normal. As you pan around with the mouse, you see. And again, this is all while holding the right mouse button. Q brings you up and Z brings you down. If this is not working for you right now, you may have your camera speed too slow. So to change your camera speed, you're going to hold your right click and you're going to mouse wheel all the way down. And that makes you slower or stop moving at all. As you gradually bring your mouse wheel forward, you scroll up, you will go faster. So right mouse plus mouse wheel down, slower. Mouse wheel scroll forward will make you go faster, and it'll save the speed there. All right. So it is how you can move around in this world that we're about to start making. So we're going to leave this world entity alone for right now, and we are going to add our terrain. So this here is called your resource browser. You can search, and you do not need to use the full name. You can kind of short key this. So if you add a couple letters of each word, you can filter through it a little bit faster. So we're going to look for generic terrain. Here you can type in space. You can use the space key and not use underscore, because we're going to look for what the item is called. We're going to go into the ARMA Reforger folder, and you're going to see generic terrain default. You're going to click and drag, and you should see it come up in the hierarchy over here. The next very important step is that you're going to come into the coordinates section, and it's going to be on the object properties. Again, yours is going to look a little bit different than mine because of how I have it set up. So you're going to be clicked here, and you're going to be looking at its object properties. In its coordinates, you're going to click on them and change them all to 0. This is very, very, very important that you do this. Do not forget this step. If you forget this step and you do some additions to your world, there is a way you can mostly fix this issue. That is a different video. So there is an old school way, kind of the older way to make a terrain. I'm just going to show it real fast. This is not what you're going to do though. So the old school way was to go into the Create tab here and type in generic terrain, and you would click and drag that. This is the newer version. What we did is a generic terrain default. Okay, you're not doing this. This here is the newer way. This is the older way, but essentially they're going to be doing the same thing. All right. So with our generic terrain underscore default selected, we are going to come over here and we are going to right click on this generic terrain entity. And we're going to click create new terrain. This name, you can leave whatever you want. I just leave mine named as terrain. The terrain grid size, as you increase these numbers by clicking the up and down arrows on it, you're going to see the size down here increase. So these are by kilometers. So the important thing here is that you cannot change this later on. So if you do whatever this is, a 3x3, and you're like, oh, I want my map to be a 6x6, 8x8, whatever it is, you need to completely redo your terrain. There may be a way, and I'm sure there is, to add more terrains later on, but that's more advanced. So be comfortable, be confident with the terrain size you choose before you start working in it. So if you choose a terrain size that you end up not liking, you can delete this terrain entity and redo this process, this step. That is possible, but you cannot resize it. So make sure you're comfortable with it. The other key factor here is if you are importing a real world height map, which a lot of people like to do, you need this to match the size of that height map as closely as possible. The map I am personally working on is a 16 by 16. It's a pretty large map. They recommend people new to map making, which I am myself, don't get me wrong, to do a smaller map, around give or take, we'll say 5 by 5. 16 by 16 is a pretty large task for a new person like myself. And I will say it is a pretty daunting task in a way, especially when you're working by yourself. So moving on, choose a size you're comfortable with. For this tutorial, we're just going to do, we'll just choose 5 by 5 for no reason. These settings in here, there are things you can do with this. I'm not familiar with this. I've not messed with these, so I'm not going to talk about them. I would recommend you look through the Atlas guide or listen to Bohemia's Mod and Bootcamp that covers some of this stuff. I don't know them, so I'm not going to talk about them. So we're going to hit create, and it's going to be a very flat structure here. All right. This is what you are going to get right out the gate. So I am going to talk about importing a height map and importing a Satmap. If you are not doing that, if you are just going to be sculpting this yourself, which do be mindful, it's not entirely recommended, just simply because it's going to take you a long time to sculpt and do things yourself. It is recommended by most people to do a height map. If that's not what you're doing, if you're just going to be working this yourself, you can skip to the next section. So to import a height map, you're going to use the terrain tool, which is this button here. If you hover over it, it'll tell you that you can shortcut key it by Control T. So Control T also brings this up. You may see this down here, and you have to select it there. So I am not going to go over how to make a height map and get it from a real world source, I will link Piano Man's video in the description. It is a 4-part video, and I highly recommend you watch it, not only for this, but also a lot of good information he has in it. I am trying to not go over too much in this. So I'm going to bring in the height map I have from my map. So we're going to click import height map. You are going to hit this button here, and I'm going to find where I have this. Should be essentials. All right. So you will find wherever you have that height map file saved. I'm not sure exactly what these are. This was on by default, so I'm going to leave it. We're going to hit OK. This cannot be undone. So if you've sculpted your terrain and you bring in a height map, it's going to completely undo what you did. All right. We're going to hit yes. Tile texture size. We're going to leave all this the same. I'm not familiar with most of these. I left everything I had by default. Again, the Atlas guide or the mod and bootcamp should cover more of that. All right, and we're going to go and see. Now the terrain has some sculpt to it. It has some layers to it. All right. Looks weird the way it looks, but we are now going to import our satellite map. And one thing I do want to mention is that my map is 16 by 16. It is scaling it down to be a, I think we chose a 5 by 5. So just keep it in mind in case it looks a little bit off. All right, your Satmap. You're going to go to where you have your Satmap file saved. And a Satmap can be anything. It can be just one big green document. It could be one a file from some other world that isn't the the image you created. You can add to your Satmap. There's a lot you can do with this, but again, we're going to try to keep it simple. So this is the Satmap I'm going to bring in. We're going to uncheck in linear color space, and we're going to leave everything else the same, and we're going to hit OK. And there we go. So you would use your Satmap as a reference point for where you are going to do certain things. So for instance, if I wanted to duplicate this exact Satmap, I would know I need to put a lake here, a lake there, some roads, some houses, so on and so on. There is a way to import roads from the world data. Again, that is covered in Piano Man's video. Watch that if that's what you want to do. I am not covering how to import roads. I am not covering how to import the painted terrains and that kind of stuff, okay? This is all just a guide on getting started, not doing that stuff's a part of getting started, but I'm not so familiar with it. His videos cover it, and again, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. So as you get closer, you're going to see that this Satmap itself goes away, and you are now on the terrain. So if you want to sculpt it, you can go to the sculpt tool. Again, we're in the terrain tool, which is Control T. You hit sculpt. And if you don't see this cursor, hold Control on your keyboard and bring your mouse, move it forward or move it down. Moving it down makes it smaller. Moving it forward makes it bigger. So you're out the gate, your tool may be this big of a radius, and you think you don't see it. Hold Control, bring your mouse down quite a bit until it's there, or just go into the radius and just change it to like 10, and that'll bring it there. So the first time you go to use the terrain tool, you're going to click once, and sometimes there's going to be a dialog box. I'm kind of surprised it didn't bring it up. All right. If you have a dialog box that comes up, just click OK on it, and then you can start to mold it and sculpt it. So these tools are a whole different topic. I'm not going to get into much detail on them. So We're going to go and save. And notice in the top right corner, it has a progress bar, a percent bar. You want this to complete before you do anything else. Do not do anything with your world. Do not exit out of it. Do not move around. Try to limit yourself to essentially walking away at this point or doing something different. I would avoid doing anything on the computer itself, really, because if you do something that causes it to crash or the computer to crash, you may corrupt your save. You want to be in the habit of making backups. I will do a different video on that at some point, and I will try to link it in this video when I do that. So saving regularly is highly encouraged. Backing up your save is extremely encouraged, because you don't want to do 3-4 months worth of work and it go to waste because you corrupted it while messing with the world while it's doing this. So the bigger the map, the larger the map you have with more detail, the longer this is going to take. This happens every time you import the Satmap and you click save. So please be mindful when you import Satmap and you save, this is going to happen. So work around that. I have to predict a 5 to 10 minute save when I do it on my map because of how big it is. So, so that is the terrain. As a side note, the old school way, when you used the create and generic world entity, you had to go in here and click terrain. You don't need to do that anymore if you are using the generic terrain default. That is now fixed because I'm assuming it's because of this layer preset. So you do not need to check mark that anymore. Your vehicles work fine. If you used a generic terrain entity, you have to, in your entity that you placed and did what we just did, you do have to go in and click terrain. Where'd it go? Terrain. You do not click vehicle, you click terrain. So if you use that and you put a vehicle down and it's not working, check mark terrain. If you used the generic terrain defaults.et, you should not have to do that. All right. All right. So we are going to go into our world entity now, and we are going to add our environment items. So I am going to bring up a picture that has a list of these items. So you can screenshot this if you want. You can take a picture with your phone and reference it, write these down. It doesn't really matter how you do it. If you want to keep following the video, you can, or you can skip to the next step. Essentially what we're going to do is find these items. We're going to click and drag them into these presets and stuff here. I apologize. To give you an example, we are going to look for the atmosphere. So we're going to click on, we're going to go to Sky Preset. We're going to click on those dots, and we're going to type in atmosphere. And we're going to go for atmosphere.emat. And then you're going to do the same thing for each of these here, all the stuff in environment. So if you want to skip listening to me and watching me do this, you can just find these and drag them over. So I'm going to move this off screen so I can reference it and do this a little quicker. We're going to go into planet preset. We're going to hit the plus button. We're going to look for sun_01. Hit the plus button again. Moon 01. Plus button. And stars 01. All right. We're going to change this to Sky Volumetric Clouds Renderer. And the rest of these are by the name there. ocean.emat. Ocean Sim is Ocean Sim Island. All right, go ahead and click save. Again, be in the habit of saving. So again, all we did was we just clicked on the option here, the browse, typed in what the name of it is, and chose it. For here, we clicked the plus symbol. You can click 3 times, and it'll load up a blank spot for you to do them. All right, and that is that. So we saved. All right. The next item here that we are going to address is adding in our essentially our managers and some other entities. So what I like to do, because again, we want to leave our default folder with just our terrain, our world in it. I like to leave the terrain in it. We are going to do a little bit of organization. This is not mandatory. You don't have to do it this exact way, but this is how I like to do it. I'm going to bring a picture on the screen here. So when you right click on the world, you get an option to create folders and layers. A folder obviously is that, and I like to call these the sandwich. The sandwich is the layer. So I like to make a folder called A World Items, because the A will make it at the top of the list. And then managers. You can call it A World Managers, whatever you want. You can call it anything under the sun you want to call it. I just name it managers because it helps keep it organized. Another example is I like to have a roads layer and a layer that I work out of when I work on my train, which is a dependency, a mod. It's the one, it's the Redux for the train. I forget the exact name, but I think Till and his group made it. So you don't have trains in the vanilla game. As an extra side note, I have another folder called locations. The next folder is the location's name. And then inside that, I have another folder for kind of what they are, different areas that I work out of, and then the different layers for myself and a buddy that will hopefully be helping me here soon, so we don't mess with each other's stuff. Working on a map together is possible. That is a whole other topic, a whole other video. Piano Man has a video on that already, so check that out if that's something you're interested in. So, and again, notice down here my default is still named default with the terrain and the world in it. When I made my terrain, it was using the old method. So you'll notice that it is red, whereas yours is blue. This is the proper way, is the blue version, the generic terrain default. All right. The way we're going to organize here is like I just showed you. We're going to right click on your world. We're going to hit folder. We're going to call it world items. And then what did I do? I did a layer called, you just call it managers for right now. You can rename these later on. Like if you right click, you can rename. Sometimes you can click on it in F2. Some things won't let you do that, but right click and rename it if you want later on. We are now going to double click on managers, or you can right click and set as active as well. You want to make sure you do this because anything else you add is going to be, or anytime you have a layer selected, it's going to add whatever you're adding to that layer. So make sure you're on managers. If you forget to do this or it's by accident, you can click and drag into the managers folder if you want. So the next few items, kind of the same idea as earlier, are these items here. These are their names. These are what you want in your world. So you can pause this video here and either take a screenshot, write them down, take a picture on your phone, whatever you want to do. You just find these in the resource browser down here. It's a little bit different than before. I misspoke earlier. I apologize. You're going to use your resource browser to find these items, and you are going to click and drag them. So if you want to save yourself a few minutes of me doing this and listen to me ramble, you can do that. There are a couple things I will talk about and explain them, but it's not necessary to listen to that. So you can go and skip to the next section if you want. So we are going to move this off screen, and we're going to look in our resource browser, and the first one's going to be map entity. And we are going to look for map entity default. And let's get, I like to do this stuff in a corner somewhere, so I'm not going to be doing anything over here. So when you place these, make sure it's going to be above the terrain. You don't want this stuff going underneath the terrain. So just keep that in mind. So make sure you're above the terrain. So we're going to click and drag. This map entity is, from what I understand, for your paper map. When you make a paper map, you'll modify and do this. But again, that's a different video. Piano Man does have a video on that. Maybe at some point I'll make one myself, but I believe his is current. So we got the map entity. I'm just going to keep going through these. Preload. Manager. CR camera manager. And again, when looking, you can retry. All right. Destruction manager. So in my list, there's destruction manager and MP destruction manager. You can go and add both of those right now. So again, destruction manager and MP manager. So ignore the generic world light entity. Fog, haze. Time and weather. All right. As this quick note about time and weather, and generally speaking, for all this stuff, you're going to leave most of this stuff as default. Certain things you will go into, like the SCR AI world is for your nav meshes, and we talked about map entity. Time and weather, you're going to pretty much leave alone. You can, where is it at? Initial daytime. If you kind of move that around, you can change what the time of the day it is. So I would always bring that back to default. And you can do that by that undo arrow there. I wouldn't mess around with much of this other stuff right now, especially being newer. All right, so the next one is projectile. Music manager base. So you can choose either of these. For whatever reason, I chose Everon, so we're going to duplicate that and go there. Where do we go? It was ambient sound force sync. We already did MP destruction manager, an EnvProbe. All right, this one here, you want to make sure it is above the terrain and in a better position. So I'm not going to mess with this one too much. You also want to make sure it is, the type is global placed. Should be that way by default. Moving this into a specific spot for your map will make it look a little bit different. I'm not super familiar with this myself yet. So just keep in mind, you will move this later on. The key thing is to make sure that this is above terrain and a little bit higher than where it was at. Okay. The sound world. Oh, I typed that wrong. Sound world base. Yeah. So we have our. Oh, we're gonna save. Make sure you save. We have our world set up. We have our terrain set up. We have our managers with our managers folder with our items. And again, on this list, this generic world light entity, I'm not sure what that is, why I have it in mine. I could not find it. I'll try one more time. Yep, that must be something else. So I apologize about that being on that list. So if you could not find that, not a big deal. All right, let's go ahead and let's add another layer. We're actually going to do it on the map itself. I like to do Z test because it'll keep it at the bottom of the list. Double click it. And we're going to look for a UAZ PKM. Open up ARMA Reforger. Go to prefabs. And we are going to click and drag. All right. Now, as a quick note for how to move items in the world. So we went over the camera. Again, the camera is holding your right mouse click and then using WASD and Q and Z to move around. When you click on an item, it's going to be one of 3 different tools that are selected right now. You have the ground manipulation tool, the move tool, or the rotate tool. It'll tell you the hotkey for it right next to it. So right now, rotate tool is E, move is W, and ground is Q. So when you have an item selected and you hit Q on your keyboard and you grab this dot here, it'll move it along the ground. All right. When you look at the ground manipulation tool, there are some other things here you can do. So you can mess with those if you want. W is how I like to move things for the most part. You can use these arrows, move them around. All right. And then E is your rotate tool. All right. Move it here, that. So if you notice, while we're moving stuff, you can see its angles move. So if you want to make this back to 0, we can undo, undo, and undo. When you're rotating, you can also hold Control and move the item, and it should rotate it and snap at certain points. And then I'm not going to get in much more detail on that. That's a different video, and I'll go over that stuff later on. So you can right click on the, if the item is floating off the ground, you can right click on it and snap to ground. Again, it'll tell you the short key for it here. Hold Control and hit down on the keyboard. All right, we're going to save. We're going to go next to this green arrow. We're going to do the drop down window. We're going to play inside viewport. You can play full screen if you want. Play inside viewport and then play from camera position. That's very, very important. If you don't play from camera position, you may not be able to test it. Also keep in mind, if you're playing from camera and you're this high up, your guy's going to fall. So try to be kind of as level to the ground as you can. So once you have that selected, go and hit play. Go up to it, get in. Let's just make sure our vehicle works. And there we go. All right. So that works. We're going at, all right. So that should do it for the basics of everything. I do want to go over one more thing real fast. There is an issue that tends to come up, and it doesn't look like it happened on this map, right? Oh, no, it did. Look at that. Okay. So if you're not seeing a black box like this, go to View and turn on World Bounds. So it's gone. We're going to View, check World Bounds. And we are going to try and fix this real quick. So we can put down, I tried earlier with retaining wall grass, and you were going to put one here and over here. And then however high you think the highest point of your map is going to be, you're going to put one kind of in the middle and raise it however high you think you want it. Let's just put it there. You're going to save. Make sure there's no progress bar. We're going to close. We're going to reopen the world editor. I'm going to reopen the map. And you should now see that black box cover your map from those two walls up to that high of a wall. This is a temporary fix. This is not going to be permanent. There's other ways to do this, I believe, but just to get you started, this should hopefully fix that problem for you. If you don't fix this, certain things just won't look right. They won't work properly. So just make sure that you view your world bounds and you get it to where it covers from one end of the map to the other. Excuse me. And is as high as you're going to need it. For this, the world bounds here would be fine. We're not, because we wouldn't get that high, but that should cover most everything I wanted to cover. This video went a little bit longer than I was expecting, but I wanted to make sure I covered as much as I could. So I may add to this a little bit more later on, and I may take this video down and cut in the new stuff, but this should hopefully have everything it needs to have. If you have any questions or if something is wrong, please let me know. Thank you.